Okay, we're live. So this is Toby, and I'm writing a program. I'm planning to write a program to clean up uh, the node modules folders that have been accumulating on my hard drive. So I use a really handy program called Grand Perspective. I'll give them a shout out really quickly. Grand Perspective. By the way, I'm trying this YouTube live streaming thing to allow me to live record these videos and make them available really easily. Okay, I'm using this Grand Perspective program, which is available for OS 10, to give you this visual of your disk usage, to be able to visually see a breakdown of where your disk usage is distributed, and you can sort of hover over these various areas. There's this huge big block that's due to me using a automatic backup service called Backblaze. It's good. I haven't had trouble with it. I'm not gonna muck with that one. There's other big blocks here. That's the various applications you have installed on your Mac. Anyway, you can look through the breakdown of where the disk usage is being distributed on your hard disk. One thing I noticed is that for a lot of these chunks, while the individual files are small, we actually have a lot of stuff allocated within various node modules folders, as you can see. See, all of these, a lot of these stuff, even though they belong to very small individual files, but the various files reside within some node modules folders. And because I have experimented or just have lots and lots of different projects on my hard drive, the amount of node modules folders and the contents within those folders accumulate to end up being very big. So my plan is to write a script to automatically detect the node modules folders that are on my system, and also will allow me to delete them with one fell swoop. Hopefully that will clean up my hard drive, and perhaps we can rescan this thing, although this rescan takes a really long time, so maybe I won't do it on the stream here. Currently I have 108 gigabytes of space available. If I cleaned it up, the total hard drive space is 200. Okay, so I have 200 gig hard drive total, and currently I have 108.02 of that free. So the goal is to get that even to go up, hopefully after this process, and we can track that as we go. All right, let's do this. So what I'm gonna do is make a new project. I'm gonna make this program in Node.js because that's what I am familiar with. I'm gonna leave that scan here. I'm gonna make a new folder. It's called a clean up node modules. Since that guy's underscore, I guess I'll make this underscore. Okay, so this is a new Node.js project. I'm gonna use npm init to start it up. Okay. Already I know a module that I'm gonna be using. It's called mz. This is what I like to use for file system operations in Node.js because it allows me to do it in this promise ifide API, and I can use async await with it, and that's how I like to do things with Node.js nowadays. Okay, so this is my Atom editor. So the first thing I'm gonna do is just write a little program to play around. We will involve recursion in this exercise. So let me just try. Maybe I'll call this. I'll just call it play, because I'm not sure what I want to do. I think the first thing I want to do is just to traverse the directory, the file, a certain file directory, and from a certain directory, I probably end up doing it on my home directory. So, and my home directory is called, I think it's users airport YH. Yeah, that is my home directory. So I'm gonna start here basically, and inside here there's a lot of files, like or a lot of directories, like directory A, directory B, and in there's more stuff inside it, and some of those are subdirectory, and I don't know, and somewhere along the way you'll get a node modules directory, and those are the ones I want to pick out. So first I actually want to write a traversal function that can allow me to just find these folders in the first place that are with that exact name, node modules. So let's try that. So I'm gonna get the MZ file system module in there immediately. If you're not familiar with how you might use MZ, there's another YouTube video I have made that details that. Let me see. Toby Ho Node.js async await. If you search for those things, you should find it, I believe. It's this one here. File IO in Node.js with async await. That one we'll talk about MZ. Okay, so I'm gonna use async await. I'm gonna make a main function, which is gonna be the entry point here. Call the main function. If there's an error, we're gonna send that to console.log. All right, let's go with this. Okay, so let's start. Let me think. You know what? Let's just start with my, you know what? Okay. I'm gonna pass in the directory name, directory path, as an argument. So I'll call this dir path, and we'll get that from process.argv2, because the reason it's argv2 is because when we do this, this is argv0, node is argv0, play.js is argv1, and then if you need to pass in another thing here, say the directory name, this would be, you pass in another thing, this would be index 2, so index 1, index 0. So okay, and we'll say you have to pass it in. If you didn't pass it in, then I'm gonna just return. We'll print out that, hey, please specify a directory. Okay, but if you did provide a directory, I'll just print that out. Processing dir path. So see if that worked. So please specify a directory, and then I'll just say home path. Now, and because I'm using a Unix system, the tilde is an alias for my home path. So it's gonna process my home path. Great. Now I have to traverse through this directory. How do you do that? Let's look up the Node.js documentation. I think it's Node.js FS module. The reason I'm using the Node.js core documentation, even though we're not using the core file system, we're using MZ's version of the file system, is because MZ's version of the file system matches one-to-one with the core version. It's just that MZ's version is a promise if-I'd version. Yeah, that's all. So anything that exists here is also gonna exist in the version that we're using. So the one I want to use is list directory, list, I believe it's called, or is it called dir, or reader, I believe. Yeah, reader is the one I want because reader will, oh, you know what? There's a fs.promises. Looks like the promise-ified version made it into the core, but you have to do this dot promises thing, which is also fine, I think. Maybe I try that. I have not tried that before, so maybe I don't use mz but use fs.promises. So I'm just gonna try get the directory entries. When you call reader, you get the directory entries, the things that are in the directory. They call it files, but it might not actually be a file. It might be a subdirectory. So I'll call this entries equals await fs.promises.reader. I wonder if I have a new enough version of Node to have this promises feature, but we'll see. If it doesn't work, then we'll go back to using mz. So these are the entries. Okay, let's run this script, see where we are. Oh, that totally worked. So we don't need mz, really. We can just use this promises version of the file system module, which already exists in core now. Okay, everything is changing all the time. So okay, so these are the entries that are in my home directory. I can already see that there's a lot of hidden files and directories. Those are the ones with the dot prefix with the dot. I want to ignore those. Those are meant to be hidden files, and I don't work inside them, so we don't really need to process them. I'm not gonna make a Node modules, make a npm project inside one of those hidden directories. At least not usually. So I think what I'll do is make a traverse function, which is also going to be an async function. It'll be actually an recursive async function. So we're making a recursive, God, right, good, Toby. Recursive async function. And I will probably call it traverse for now. Later on, we might give it a more specific and meaningful name, but for now, let's call it traverse. It's going to traverse a certain path, let's say. Although the name path, I'll call it dir path. Okay, and then I'll just say traverse starting from this dir path, but it can recursively call itself to traverse a subdirectory within it. Okay, so the way we're gonna do that is actually we're gonna move this line in, because this is part of the action of traversing. So we're gonna first find the entry. Let's call this child entries to be very specific, and then we're gonna loop through that. Entry of child entries. I'm happily using the for of syntax of ES 6 or 7. I don't remember which one. Instead of using array.for each. Okay, so now entry, it's each one of these strings now. I'm gonna say if entry starts with, I think starts with is a actual method now. We're gonna skip that one, and when you're inside of a for loop, to skip an iteration you can write continue. But else, if it's not one of these hidden files or folders because it starts with a dot, then we'll pretend, for now, we'll pretend to process it and say processing this entry. Let's see if that works. Oh yeah, nice. And when we did skip the hidden files, we are using something that's experimental. The fs.promises API is experimental. Okay, that kind of annoys me. And I'm wondering whether there's a way to suppress this warning, but I'm not gonna take time for now to do that. Okay, but if now we can actually do this recursive call in the event or in the case that the entry within the directory, if the entry is another directory, not a file, then we want to traverse it again. Okay. So how do you tell if it's a directory or not? Or yeah, how do you tell if it's a directory or a file? We'll consult the Node.js module documentation, the file system module documentation, and this is kind of dense. There's a lot of info here. If you're new to interacting with the file system, I actually recommend you go through this and read this. You'll be much more knowledgeable about the file system if you did this. But basically, I've done this before, and basically I can tell you that you need to use you need to get the file stats for the particular entry, because an entry is just a string. You don't get any information. You can't get any information just from the string. So what you actually need is the stats. How do you get the stats? Let's see. There must be a fs.stats. There we go. If you get a stats object, fs.stats object is an object that provides information about a file. And there's one of three ways to get a stat. Just the normal stat, or an lstat, or an fstat. I don't even know the difference between these. I'm sure there is actually a difference. This is an asynchronous, I don't know. It's identical to stat, except that if the path is a symbolic link, then the link itself is statted, not the file that it refers to. I see. So the lstat is the I'm actually not gonna get into symbolic links and that stuff. I'm just gonna because I don't want to get into that. Let's just keep going. So we'll use fs.stat, and if we had fs.stat, we called it and we gave it a path. We'll use the promises version, because we're trying to make the code very straightforward using a single wait here. So let's get the stat of the file, and we have to await it. So fs.promises.stat, and we need to give it the path of this entry, which we don't have access to currently, because we have to combine this entry, which is the name of the thing, combine it with this parent path. So you could simply do string concatenation to do that, but that might not work across all platforms. So like for both Windows and Unix. So the more correct way, or the way that the Node.js team recommends you to use, is use this path module and do path.join to join the two things. So here, so this dir path, let's say the dir path we passed in was my home directory, which is users/airport YH, if I can spell. So this guy is that. The entry might be one of these guys here. Let's say it's documents. path.join of those two things will give you it'll put a slash between them. It'll concatenate them together while separating them with a slash, like so. Okay, so this is what path.join gives you. The reason you could just append this thing yourself, but on Windows the slashes are different, for example. So if you use path.join, then you don't have to worry about what slash you should use for what file system. Okay, so this is the entry path. Okay, and then the thing we want to stat is the entry path. So yeah, so now we should get the stat of that file. Let's just look at the stat of that file. Perhaps we'll just put that into the same console.log statement. Oh wow, there's a lot of information in there. So it's a stats object. That's what that prefix tells us. So for the AWS keys directory, the stats looks like that, and there's a bunch of information here. A lot of it may not make sense to you if you're new to Unix-based file systems. And I won't go into detail about what they are, because we don't actually need to know the details for what we're doing. I'll just mention that these timestamps here correspond to the creation time, last modified time, and the last access time. Oh, there's also birth time. I wonder how that differs from the creation time. But we're actually not going to use any of these because there are convenience methods on this stats object that can tell us whether it is a directory or that it is a file. So there are other cases like it's actually a socket or it's a symbolic link. For now, let's not worry about those other cases. Let's just handle the cases where it's a directory and a file and not worry about the other cases. Okay, so let's do this. So if stat is a directory, what are we gonna do? We're gonna recurse and call this traverse on the entry path, because entry path is now a path to a subdirectory. But else, if stat is a file, we're actually going to pretend to process it for the moment. Okay. So this is, I believe, gonna else if is something else altogether. We're not gonna worry about it, and for now I want to throw an error. Because I don't want to write code to handle that case, but I want to be notified in the event that we do encounter that case, and so that I can see the actual situation. Before deciding what to do about it. Okay, because I don't want to think too much about the cases that I'm not interested in right now, but I do want to be notified when we do encounter it. Okay, so I'll say like entry path is neither a dir or a file. That's what I'll say if that happens. All right, let's run this program. Oh God. Okay, let me not print out the stat objects because that's just too much. Oh, let me also, if we're recursing, I'll also print out okay, recursing into, oh God, I do have a lot of files in there. So we're recursing into entry path. And also, while we're at it, when we're printing the name of a file, let's print the whole path instead of just a name. Oh god, okay, that's a lot of stuff. I hope I'm not showing you any private information. This is some music that I have from one of my favorite artists. Okay, but hopefully not anything that I don't want people to see. But yeah, so far it looks clean. Okay, so there's a lot of files in here, but let's go back to the original purpose of what we're doing here, and that is we want to pick out these node modules folders. So how about whenever we sniff out a node modules folder in our anywhere within our home directory, we'll just report that by doing a console.log. So how about and we're not going to traverse it. So how about if the entry, and again, the entry is just a string. If the entry is node, its name is node modules, then we'll just report that. We'll say found, and then I'll print out the entry path so you know where it is. But otherwise, that's when we'll traverse. And I won't do this anymore, or print out for files. I'll just say ignore if it's a file. Silent treatment. Okay, run that script. Oh gosh, what? We're getting these errors. Let me make this window bigger so I read the error more. I have a unhandled promise rejection. Am I forgetting to await? Yes, I'm forgetting to await. This traverse, when you call a async await, an async function, I should say, you should await it if you want to be able to catch the error in the case that an error occurs. Okay. Okay, so that's cool because now it's listing out a whole bunch of node modules folders that it's finding in various places in my directory structure. And that's what I wanted it to do, but it did error out here where it found a because that's probably a symbolic link. Oh, no such file or directory actually. Oh, I see. That's actually not due to this error. That's actually due to, I believe, I had a symbolic link here that points to a file that I deleted recently. So I'm just gonna remove that actually, and that should get around that problem. Okay, so it's finding node modules folders in a lot of different places. Oh god, it's this time it finds an error, and again it's a no such file or directory, but the no such file or directory error is coming from, oh, you may not see this because we sort of muffle the error. Let's print the stack trace here. But I believe it's coming from this stat call, but if we had printed out the error stack trace, then we would be able to see that. So let's do that again. Or not. This error, I guess I was wrong in saying that. So this error originated either by throwing inside of an async function, which, so did I forgot to slap async? Oh yes. No, I don't think this is async. Let me check that. Is file is directory. They're just normal functions. They're not async functions. They're not asynchronous. Oh, it's this one. I forgot to await that. Okay, that was the problem. When you're using async await and you want to do nested, like a child function call, and the child function is an async function, you want to remember to await that, and I forgot to. Okay, so now, yes, this stat call didn't work because probably this, whatever this file is, it just isn't there. So instead of keep trying to hit these golfers that just pop up various different places, I'm just gonna say put a try catch here, because the error was due to the stat call, which is on this line. So I'm gonna do this try catch statement that surrounds this block here. Okay, and in the case where there's a basically the stat failed, most likely because that path doesn't lead to an actual file for whatever reason, we're just gonna ignore it, I think. Ignore the problem and just, yeah, and to allow the other code to keep going. Ooh. Interesting. This is in a cache. But I don't know who's, I guess, oh, it's a TypeScript. Is TypeScript storing things in here? Who's putting things in here? I'm not sure. Okay. So I got a lot of stuff. Wow. It's probably really deep into something right now. I don't know where. Okay, some of my presentations that have code examples in them probably, and then those have no modules in them. Not so sure about this caches thing. Maybe I should. Oh, and that's it. Maybe I should exclude this library folder, because that's not a folder that I do my work in, but rather that's a place where various applications that I use put stuff in there, and I don't necessarily want to mess around with what those applications are trying to do in like least that I break some of those applications that I'm using. But other than that, I think I've found a good number of Node modules folders. So now, okay. So I'm gonna write code to exclude this library from the bunch, basically, and not traverse it. So I'll say another if statement. Else, if this time I want to test for the full path, so I'll if the entry path is that, I want to just ignore. Okay, so I'll retest that to see that that's working. And then I think after that, I will say, I could just say delete the node modules folder, although I don't want to do that just yet because I feel like I should have it report the amount of disk usage that folder is using. Oh, nice. Okay. All right. I feel like I should have it calculate the amount of disk space that folder is responsible for. So let's do that. Let's make another async function to calculate disk use of a particular directory, and I want to do that on the node modules that are found. So calculate disk usage on the entry path, and I want to remember to await it. Okay. All right, how do you calculate the disk usage? It's actually a similar thing. Actually, we're gonna traverse through and find all the files within it, and then we're gonna basically for the ones that are actual files, we'll use one of these file stat objects. Where's the file stat object? Yeah. Oh. Anyway, one of these file stat objects will give us a size in bytes, maybe. I'm not 100% sure. Is there like a get size or something? I don't know. There must be a way to do it, but it's probably not block size, but size. Will give you the size of the content of that file, and then you can add them all up and basically calculate your disk usage for that directory. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So we're gonna sort of read dir, or if this is already this may not actually be dir. Let's say this recursive function, you can use it either for a file or a directory. So I'll call this entry path to make it generic sounding, because it could either be a file or a directory. Why I want to do that? Because I think that allows me to simplify the code in here, as I'll show you, because this is also going to be a recursive function. So I'm going to first stat this guy. So now I got the stat, and I'll say if it's a directory, I'm just gonna recursively call myself on it. No, not yet. If it's a directory, I need to do the same, do the read dir thing. And I need to do this read dir and then loop through each child entry. So I'll just calculate a total. Total is 0, and then I'll loop through. I could also use reduce here, but I'm not going to. I'm just gonna use a for loop. If you don't like that, then maybe we can argue about it later, but not now. Okay, and then I'm gonna say total plus equals to the result of recursively calling myself for that child entry. I'll call this child entry to be specific. Okay, so I'll recursively calculate disk use for each child entry. Oh wait, I do want to calculate the entry path first, because I need that path to be So I'll call this child entry. I need the full path, not just the not just the name of that entry. And child entry. Okay, so I take the parent entry path, join it with the child entry. The same deal we did over here, basically. And you get the child entry path and use the calculate disk use on that guy, and then add that to the total, and then return the total. Total should be the answer for this directory. It indicates that it is a directory, but else, if the file is if it's a file, then I believe I should just use the stats size. There was a size, wasn't there? Size. Yeah, that's the total. I hope that is actually the right number to return. And okay, let's calculate the disk usage then. So this is gonna be size, and so this will be found that node modules folder occupies size. I don't know the unit actually of size. I'm assuming it's bytes, but we will see. Let's see if this works. I just wrote a recursive function from scratch, and this is the first time I'm testing it. So although usually I would do it incrementally, like write a little bit, test it, write a little bit, test it, and so forth. Actually, it's probably taking a while to calculate the disk usage, so maybe what I'll do is print that it's been found first. Oh god, it totally did not work. And then print an indented line in it that says occupies this size, although I have a bug that I have to deal with. It's not showing me anything right now. Alright, let me try running this again. Oh. It doesn't seem to be printing this occupies size thing at all, and don't understand why. Oh, there's an else case. I'll throw an error again. Throw, but maybe it hits this case. If it hits that path, then it should have errored out. Actually, no, that's not the reason. So I don't know why this is happening, but I'll try to figure it out. Okay. So I'm wondering, let's just see whether it even called this function at all. it does seem to be calling that function because it's trying to calculate the disk use for that guy. I would have expected it to recurse though. So I'll just do some printouts. So I'll just say here entry path is directory, or entry path is file, is neither file or directory. Okay. Let's see. Oop. Alright, let me look at some of these. Calculate disk use. Calculate disk use. It's not printing any of these three. Oh, no. It is printing that this is a directory. And because it's a directory, it's gonna read. Oh, it's trying to read dir path, but dir path is not a variable in the scope. Gosh, okay, so it should read dir of entry path, not dir path. I don't know how it resolved dir path even, and I misspelled that. Somehow that was not caught. Okay, change that to entry path. Maybe it works better now. Let me just check. It's a directory, so it's gonna calculate disk use. Oh, this needs to be child entry path. So that was wrong. Oh god, okay. Alright, maybe it's going closer to the right thing now. So I'm gonna try to turn off these console.log statements and let this parent printout represent the, oh, nice. It printed out the, oh wow, okay. That's quite nice. So it does seem to be giving me some numbers. If those numbers are in bytes, then I would think then this means a kilobyte. This is, I mean, okay, so you took a number like that. So this means it's 80 megabytes, 885 kilobytes, and 505 bytes. So 80 megs. Yeah. And we might as well sum all of them at the end. But I would say the 80, this is around 80 megs. This is a smaller, less than 1 meg for this peg.js directory. This is 66 megs. So if you have a lot of these things, they add up. Complex. Okay. Wow, this one has a lot. This is 180 megabytes of node modules in it. Holy crap. This one has just 1 meg. So the numbers, okay. The numbers are, there's some variance in how big the disk usage is, how much the disk usage is between the different projects. But I would say that in general, in a lot of cases, it's using a lot of disk. Okay. So So what should we do next? So I'm gonna assume this kind of works. I think what I'll do is for the projects that I haven't been working with recently, that are maybe more than 2 months old or something, then I'll just delete them. Okay, so and that's based on the access time, right? This a time, this just this a time, which is a date. So if this date is we do a current time, subtract that. If that's more than 2 months old, then I will I'll delete the contents of that node modules folder. There's a couple of things here. One is how do you delete node modules folder, because that's a recursive thing. We can either use the file system rm command to do that, or we could there's a node module that I know of, I think called rm fr npm, that will do that for you. Let me see. I think, yeah. I think I might use the system one though, because that's also fairly easy to use. So let's try that. Let's come up with the node modules folders that are. So let me merge this back into one line. So we'll say, well, if delete should delete. How about that? Should delete is, how do we determine should delete? Let's figure out what is now. If we take now and we subtract the a time, the last access time, okay, that number is greater than the amount of time in 2 months. What's 2 months? We'll just do a rough estimate. So let's say we'll also print out the access time, probably. Last modified. Okay. We'll print out the access time. Should delete. We'll print out whether we decided it should be deleted or not, but not actually do the delete for now. So we'll say should delete should be if this is greater than 2 months. 2 months. The amount of milliseconds in this time interval is greater than the amount of milliseconds in 2 months. What's the amount of milliseconds in 2 months? Well, that is how many milliseconds are there in a day? Well, that's 1,000 milliseconds per second times 60 seconds per minute times 60 minutes per hour times 24 hours in a day. So this is this is how much this is how many milliseconds you have in a day. We'll multiply that by 30 to get a month approximately, and then another 2 to get 2 months. Okay, so let's see if this tells us what we want. Okay, this is March 3rd. We should not delete that one. Some of these I feel like it should have deleted that, but it said I accessed it today. Oh, I accessed it today because I had this program that I'm making right now. I had it looping through it, and that's how I was accessing it. Dang it. Maybe I shouldn't use the access time for that then. Maybe I should use the modified time. If I haven't been modifying it, then most likely I haven't been working in it. Okay? And I'm wrote last modified here anyway. Should delete. Yes, now I'm getting some should delete equal to true, and that's kind of although now I'm thinking maybe that's not the case, because it should be if because I have been working in tobyho.com recently, and but it didn't it I have been working on my website recently. I have published changes to my website recently, but didn't flag it as should not delete. Why? Because even though I have been working on this project recently, I haven't been making any changes to the node modules folder recently. And the timestamp I'm using is the one on the node modules folder. And that actually should not be the case. So now I'm thinking it should be based on the parent directory of the node modules folder, not the node modules folder. So let's I have to stat the parent directory now. So okay. That's fine. I have this dir path, which is that I have to stat that though. So I'll say parent dir stat equals await fs stat, and I'll actually get the modified time of the parent directory instead of the node modules directory. See if that works. Okay. What just happened? I'm not sure what just happened. It could be that I mean I'm not getting any output whatsoever. So, and all I did was add this line and change a couple of things here. So I'm thinking maybe at some point it errored out on this fs.stat call. Let me see, and if that's the case, I can tell by doing something like this. Callback must be a function. Oh, I know. I forgot to write promises here. Okay, that makes sense. because I used the non-promise-ified version of the API, and then for that API I didn't use it the right way because it expects a callback to be passed in like that. Here, that's why everything crapped out. Okay. So let me think here. It still says it should delete. Oh, but this is for a different project now. No, but tobyho.com, I actually wanted to not delete anything in there. And that tells me maybe this is not enough. Maybe I need to like figure out whether the contents of the project folder, which the node module folder is part of, I need to figure out if the contents of that folder have been modified recently, and that's more work to do that, and also that potentially can be duplicated work because we kind of have did that a little bit with the outer traversal. Or just it's not as easy to do, or it's already taking a lot of time to do this. Let me see how long this takes to do all of the ones that I have so far, and like to calculate the disk usage and everything. So this is like I would free up 92 megs if I deleted this node modules folder. Okay, so I think this function is getting so big that I want to extract this chunk into a separate function. I'm gonna call it process node modules folder. Make that function. There's also gonna be asynchronous function. Drop this code in and figure out what parameters need to go in there. So the dir path needs to go in, and oh wait, but that's the parent path. Actually, I don't want the parent path to go in. I just want the entry path to go in. I can kind of figure out the parent path using the path.base path API. So I can say path.base path of the passed in path entry path. I believe I can do that. So I call this guy parent dir path. I might want to check to see if that works actually. So in the repo here, I'm gonna do a test. So if base path of say users airport YH, I'm expecting to get users here. Oh, it should be dir name, isn't it? It's dir name is what I'm after. Yeah, it's dir name. Directory name of the parent path. Okay. So that way I don't have to pass in both the parent path and the directory path. This can be calculated. Okay, so let's see if that this should work as before if I did that part right. Okay. So I think that means the extraction of this function here, that was successful. So now I can just add more complexity in this function without making this parent function too big. And also there are other ways to clean up the code as well. But for now, I'm just trying to get it to work. So I think what I might want to do is traverse the parent path for files that might have been modified recently. Look for files that might have been modified recently, and in a sense we were doing that. It's just that we weren't doing it for that purpose. But that's okay. So let's just make another function that would do that. I'll call this seek modified files. Maybe. Alright, I feel like I'm maybe getting a little tired, or maybe I'm just thinking about lunch, so I'm gonna take a break to do lunch and then come back to this problem. So the second part of this will come out in a separate video.